Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through our Week 2 IDP must-add waiver wire pickups. Week 1 of the 2025 NFL season is in the books, so we're here to talk about 5 players that really caught our eye. There's a lot of players that we could have talked about when it comes to IDP because the depth is just so vast, and depending on how you play IDP in your leagues, if you don't have a full 11 starters, you have like a treasure trove of people to pick. We're going to just talk about 5 guys that we thought were looked pretty interesting. So, Joe, why don't you start us off? What do we got for our first player?
Yeah, first player we're going to go with is defensive end Rashan Gary of the Green Bay Packers. You know, this is a guy that's always kind of was up and down last year, whether he'd have those boom and bust games, but really wondering if the presence of a guy like Micah Parsons on this team is only going to benefit him. Came out and got 1.5 sacks in week 1, as really that Packers defensive line really just dominated that Detroit Lion offensive line, which is really surprising. You know, typically Detroit's known to be the physical team when the trenches, but Green Bay really took over. He also had 7 sacks in that, or 7 tackles in that game, to go along with the 1.5 sacks, which if he's going to get those tackles too, that'd be a nice tackle floor to have in IDP.
Did you know that tied a career high for him as far as tackles goes?
No, because I know it is interesting because I know last year we were talking about him kind of like he's very sack dependent, typically didn't get the tackles. So I mean, I didn't realize that, but it doesn't necessarily surprise me.
Yeah, and even last season, Joe, the most amount of sacks he had in a game is 1. So this, in the first game, in the regular season here, he got 1.5 sacks. I really think that this is going to unlock Rashan Gary. And I'll tell you what, I mean, this is not a team defense conversation, but, Micah Parsons, I think, really made a huge impact on this defense. We're not even talking about this guy, but we saw even a guy, Colby Wooden, who replaced Kenny Clark and saw the impact that he had. He's a guy that you scooped up in our dynasty league, and people are probably like, who?
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
I really think that Rashan Gary, this is an opportunity. He's never really been an alpha. He's never been that guy. I think he's a great compliment, and I think he could be really helpful. And honestly, I don't even know if Parsons is really. I mean, I guess DeMarcus Lawrence has always been pretty good. I shouldn't say that. But I think he could have an impact like Lawrence. I think Gary could with the Packers.
Yeah, for sure. And, Micah Parsons also didn't play too much in this game. So as he continues to play more snaps, I mean, it'll be interesting to see that dynamic of the 2 edge rushers with Gary and Parsons coming off the edge.
All right, so the next guy we're going to be talking about here is defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo of the Chicago Bears. He was a free agent this offseason, went from the Indianapolis Colts to the Bears. An interesting tidbit about him that what made me interested in him and why I even signed him in our free agency in our dynasty contract and salary cap league is that he is only one of 6 players with 30 plus QB hits and fewer than 20 starts over the past 2 seasons. So this is an opportunity for Dayo Odeyingbo at only 25 years old to really have that opportunity to really step up and be that guy. They paid him like it. They paid him a lot of money to be able to come to Chicago and provide that pass rush. And the stats, he did pretty good, right? He had, 2 total tackles, 1 solo, 1 assisted, and a sack. But I think for me, what was most impressive with him was, I don't know about you, Joe, but watching the game, he had 2 QB hits, almost looked like he had forced a fumble. He just was a little bit late. He dived for the ball. And McCarthy was going in a forward motion. It could have been a fumble. He almost had another QB hit, but, in today's NFL, helmet to helmet, he got hit with the roughing the passer. And the Vikings offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in football. So for him to be able to do that with it against the Minnesota Vikings, I thought was very promising for him going forward. And he's a guy who probably, you probably could talk about guys, like maybe like an Isaiah McGuire, or even a Byron Young or something like that who performed better on the week. But I think based on the matchup, I was really encouraged that he did that against Minnesota.
Yeah, honestly, to start that game, like I was going into thinking Minnesota's offensive line was good as well, but then I mean, Chicago Bears were just dominating up front, which really was a surprise to me. But later on, Minnesota kind of found their way with the run game, and their offensive line kind of gave it back to them. But Odeyingbo is a guy, we've been talking about during the offseason, just how interesting getting more opportunities with Chicago, being able to play opposite a player like Montez Sweat, and the fact that they got a guy like Gervin Dexter in the interior part of the defensive line there as well. All right, so going to our next player here, going to go with linebacker Tyrel Dodson of the Miami Dolphins, who honestly nothing really went too well for the Miami Dolphins, but judging by their slow start on offense, could be defense, could be on the field quite a bit. He ended up getting 13 total tackles, 6 solo, 7 tackles assisted. He's coming off of over 100 tackles season last year. So looks like he's just going to keep rolling with the opportunity that he's got in the Miami Dolphins defense there.
Yeah, I really liked what I saw in that he played 100% of the snaps. So him and Jordan Brooks played that whole time. And if the offense is going to be that bad, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to get a ton of tackles. The only downside is I think Jordan Brooks is somewhat of a dominant linebacker. So the question is, can they both get theirs? I'm not so sure. But if it's going to be this bad, I mean, Dolphins are going to have a ton of tackle opportunities. So I think you got to be encouraged about Tyrel Dodson if he decided to, take him as a flyer. I mean, he, really was a part-time player with the Bills. Then, had that opportunity to be thrust into the starting role due to injuries. Now he's really kind of taken off now with Miami with the tackle opportunities. All right, so next guy we're going to be talking about here is my guy here. So I'm a little biased this week talking about some of the guys I picked up on the cheap. But actually, he's not cheap. Devin White's very expensive for me. Linebacker Devin White of the Las Vegas Raiders. I think he might be back, Joe. He logged 11 tackles, 8 solo against the New England Patriots. What encouraged me about all this is that he played all 71 defensive snaps on Sunday. That's huge. I mean, since he had that, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, separation from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he just hasn't really been able to find his footing. But he comes back he goes to Las Vegas, reunites with John Spytek, general manager for the Las Vegas Raiders, who knows him in Tampa Bay. Obviously, Tom Brady played with Devin White, but Landon Roberts got hurt in that game, did not come back. And Jermaine Pratt seemed to be kind of more of a situational linebacker. So Devin White was the guy the entire time. So it seems like he's going to be it. And for me, it's very exciting because I'm paying him a boatload of money. He was doing nothing for me last year. But I think everybody's scurrying on the waiver wire, at least in the beginning of the year. They want to find the next Zach Bond. Well, Devin White, he has the pedigree. He's performed as a top 5 linebacker in the past. We saw what even last year, even the past 2 years, we saw what Spillane was able to do with the Raiders and how much stats he was able to put up. And I know it's a little bit of a different coaching staff, Actually, no, Patrick Graham is still there, so it's the same defensive coordinator, but it's different head coach of Pete Carroll. But I think that Devin White's, I think it's a good opportunity if you want to snag him right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you and I both liked his opportunities going over to Las Vegas. I mean, with Pete Carroll, I mean, typically we've seen Pete Carroll's linebackers, do well, not only in the NFL, but, perform well in fantasy just because we usually provide the tackles. And like you said, I mean, he was really out there. You noticed him when you're watching that Raiders and Patriots game. He was making all the tackles, really involved. It was nice to see him kind of rebound. I never understood exactly what went down in Tampa, but always thought Devin White was a talented player. And for whatever reason, it just didn't end up working out. But then, he tried to find his footing with some other teams. Didn't necessarily work out for him last year, but it seems like he's rejuvenated in Las Vegas right now with Pete Carroll there.
Well, the big knock against him is his coverage ability. But the problem is it's not like the Raiders really had that much. I mean, they were even rotating Jamal Adams in there. So it's like they are going with these players like 5 years ago that were everybody's, everybody was going after him.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, Jamal Adams, no surprise. Pete Carroll's got the familiarity. We always say, just track the lines of familiarity and you'll find out what happens in the NFL.
Absolutely.
All right. So our last player here, we're going to go with safety Jordan Battle with the Cincinnati Bengals. Who had a nice game, 12 tackles, 5 solos, 7 assisted. Then, kind of had a fluky interception with the tip off of Jerry Jeudy, but nevertheless, he made the diving interception as well as the icing on the cake there. But, another guy that's clear starter, played, the snaps for the Bengals. And again, Bengals defense doesn't get a ton of credit, but if he's a guy that we've seen, if he continues to make plays, could be a nice pickup for you.
Yeah, this seems like he's poised for a breakout here, Joe. He played 100% of the snaps for the Bengals. The only other safety they got on the roster, or their starting roster, I shouldn't say the only safety, but they got Geno Stone, who I'm not really that concerned about. Regardless of the interception, take the interception away, right? He had a really good game. Really good game with 12 tackles, 5 stolen, 7 assists. And we know this defense isn't that good. So if it means he's going to keep racking up tackles, I think Battle may be able to put himself in the safety one conversation. So, it's so hard to know in IDP leagues as to, who's available, who isn't available, right? In a dynasty standpoint, I'd be shocked if he's not on a roster. If it's a redraft, he's definitely not there. How deep is the league? Who knows? I don't know. But if you look at him, I mean, looking at Fantrax here, he's rostered 2%. I would put a decent amount of FAAB on him. I really would. I think he proved the smell test here in week 1, and I would go after him for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was kind of trying to figure out some of these guys' roster percentage too. It seems like most of these guys I pulled up is like 2% on Fantrax. Not sure how that relates to other IDP leagues, but found it interesting. But like even a Rashan Gary, I think for most leagues I would assume that he was a guy that most people would have on the rosters unless it's not that deep of a league.
Well, that's tough too because Fantrax I think had him at 2% as well. So
right, that's what I mean.
I don't know. I mean, maybe on Sleeper, maybe they have it more. It really depends, I guess, on the platform primarily. We play on Sleeper, we play on Fantrax, we play on ESPN. We're not playing on some of those other platforms, so maybe the roster percentage would be a little bit higher. So that does it for this episode. We went through our Week 2 IDP must-add pickups for your waivers this week. If you haven't done so already, check out our most recent episode. We did the same thing, but for the offensive side of the ball. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.